Hello everybody, Dash here, DMD of Houston Institute, here for the second video of our Houston Institute data series. So last time we looked at scoring exam data, and that allowed us to get student scores, put those scores in the gradebook, and also see which students were struggling, which students were doing well, and that would allow us to differentiate our practices and instruction for those students. This time we're going to do a more aggregation method of breaking down data by exam standards. My email address, feel free to reach out to me at any time, is right here. If you have any question of the videos, Data Institute or otherwise. And for this video, we're going to start off where we left off in the last video. So if you didn't save a copy of the data in the last video, this link will give you a spreadsheet where you'll see where we left off last time. We'll have the exact data from that. So take this link, type it into your browser, or copy and paste it. We also have it linked down in the description to start off with our data. So once you open up that tiny URL link, you'll come to this. Again, go to File and hit Make a Copy into your drive so that you get an editable version that you can follow along with me. So last time we took the roster of students, which happens to correspond exactly with the Los Angeles Dodgers, and they took a math exam, and we broke down their questions and calculated their total raw scores over here, as well as the percent correct, and then we color-coded them by how well they did. Darker green colors meaning they did very well, lighter, more white colors meaning they didn't do so hot. Now we're going to look at, instead of breaking it down by individual student, we're going to break it down by standard. We can see here that questions 1 and 2 were from standard 1, which is quadratic equations. Questions 3 through 5 hit on standard 2, which is exponential functions, and then questions 6 and 7 hit on linear equations. No matter what region you go to, we'll be teaching to standards. There will be a curriculum, whether or not you'll make it, or it'll be given to you, or is they tested, and you'll need to know which standards am I doing as a teacher the best on, such my students are doing the best on, which are they doing more poorly on, and you can adjust your instruction from there. So how do we really break this down to know which standards did our students do best on, which ones did they do not so hot on? So I'm going to start with standard 1 here, which is quadratics, and it's covered by questions 1 and 2. First, actually, what I want to do is see for each question, how did the students do? So I'm going to click down here in the cell C24, which is right below the total possible points for question 1. And as per last time, we're going to go ahead and make a formula. So after you click into that cell, C24, go up to the formula bar here with the FX, type in equals, as always, because it always starts off with equals. And then we're going to find an average this time. So we're going to type in the word, in all caps, average, open parentheses, which is shift 9, and then highlight all student responses for question 1, all the student scores for question 1. Then close parentheses and press enter. And right there underneath the total possible points, we see the average score for question 1 among all my 20 students. I'm going to go ahead and label this last row average so we know what's being calculated here. Again, the neat trick in Google Sheets, Excel, or other spreadsheet programs is once you do that formula, you can go ahead and drag it across. So click the bottom right-hand corner of that cell, drag across through each column there, and you'll see it populates the average scores for each question. So it looks like question 1 wasn't so bad, 9 out of 12 points on average. Question 2, though, was a bit of a struggle, 3.75, 3.725 points out of 8. Not a great average there. And the final row here, final column, J, you can see their average raw score out of 52, which was a 29.45. We can even drag this over one more to get the average percent. The average percent was a 56%. So overall, the students didn't do amazing. 56% is not a great average to have on assessment. I usually like to have an 80% mastery goal, 80% average test score. Maybe it was a hard exam, maybe it was an unfair exam, or maybe it was a fair exam and we simply missed our mark. Now, let's talk about breaking it down by standard. So both question 1 and question 2 were included in standard 1, quadratics. So I'm going to go over here to the right in column M. I'm going to type in standard 1, standard 2 below it, and standard 3. And then in column N, right above there, and 2, I'm going to type in average. So we get our average percent score for each one. And we can compare across standard. So right here, we're going to add in our formula. So click into N3, go to the formula bar, click equals, or type equals. And first, we're going to get the total sum of all of our student scores for questions 1 and 2. So I'm going to type in all caps sum, open parentheses, and highlight all student scores for questions 1 and 2. So that's C3 through D22. Close parentheses. So what that will give us is the total sum of all our student scores for those questions. Now, in order to get the average score, in order to get how well we did this class overall, what we should do is divide by the total amount of points they could have scored possible. For question 1, the total amount of points possible was 12. For question 2, the total amount of points possible was 8. So a total of 20 points for standard 1. And we have 20 students, so 20 times 20, there were 400 possible points these students could have earned. So I'm going to take that sum and I'm going to hit backslash right after it and divide by 400. So I'm summing all their scores and dividing by the total possible number they could have gotten, which was 400. Press enter, and you get a 64%, about 0.636. I'm going to do the same thing for standard 2. So in this cell, N4, type in the formula bar equals sum. And this time, I'm going to highlight all student responses for questions 3 through 5. Close parentheses, and then we're going to divide by, well, let's count the points. 8 plus 6 is 14, plus 6 again is 20. So a total of 20 possible points for standard 2 for each student. Again, 20 students, 20 times 20 is 400. So we're going to divide by 400. Press enter one more time, 0.5. So that standard was even worse. They averaged about 50%. Last but not least, for standard 3 equals sum. And we're going to highlight everything here for questions 6 and 7, because those are both covering standard 3, which is linear equations. Close parentheses. Divide by, well, 6 plus 6 is 12 possible points for each student for standard 3. 12 times 20 is 240, so we're going to divide by 240. And again, with these, I like to put in a percent. So highlight the averages for each standard, go up to format, and change that from number to percent. And we can see here that standard 1 was our highest average. So it looks like relative to the other ones, we're doing pretty well in quadratics. Standard 2 was only 50%. That was the worst one. Standard 3 was middle. But again, all these standards were pretty low scoring. So you might want to think not just comparing the standards and differentiating instruction based on the standards and just saying, oh, I just need to focus on standard 2. Maybe you need to focus on all these things going forward, because students did not attain a mastery level you might have wanted to attain. Or you can look through your test and realize, well, actually, this might have been an unfair test. It doesn't really align to the standards I want to set for this age group, for this grade level. That is your call to make as an instructor. Something to be aware of, though, is you never, ever, ever want to lower expectations for students. If you think this test was fair, appropriate for their age level, appropriate for where they should be at to be on the course to going to and through college, or whatever other goals you might have for them, don't shy away from this data. A low test is an opportunity. It's not something to ignore. One important thing to note is that even though these are the average scores for each standard, and this is the overall average, it doesn't mean all your students scored at 56%. And it doesn't mean that all your students scored about in the 60s in standard 1, in the 50s in standard 2, etc. Some of your students here scored really well. Cody Bellinger got 100%. Pedro Baez got an 89%. Hyunjin Ryu got a 94%. So there's a lot of variation here. When you're really thinking through what do students need, averages can be misleading sometimes. Not all students need the same thing, and not all students are at the same level. There's variation in data. So keep that in mind, and always remember to think about individual students and individual student needs, especially when working with averages. So that's breaking down data by standards and by questions. Again, if you have any questions, my email is in the description, and I'll see you next time.